What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Courtside Soundoff podcast. And once again, I'm Josh Evanoff. As always, welcome by the one and only man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Angel Ortega. There's a lot of stuff we need to talk about this week. UFC Austin to go over, UFC Vegas 83, as well as a bunch of news. As always, we are brought to you by two fantastic sponsors of the show, Rogue Energy and ELYXR. RogueEnergy.com, code SOUNDOFF at checkout for 10% off. ELYXR.com, exact same thing. Code SOUNDOFF. Complete opposite substances. Rogue Energy, they're going to get you very pumped up to go get throughout your day. You know, I typically use them before I go to the gym. ELYXR, though, I use them to calm down at the end of the night, get myself really high with their Delta 8, 9, and 10 products. But regardless, it's code SOUNDOFF for both of those websites, both of those sponsors. Once again, Rogue Energy and ELYXR. Angel, last Saturday night for the Moody Center in Austin, Texas. One of the greatest UFC fight night cards of all time. I feel very comfortable saying that. Just banger after banger after banger after banger. In the main event, though, it was Arman Tsarukyan getting the job done in around a minute, taking out Beneil Dariush by knockout. For Arman Tsarukyan, right? I mean, this was the statement win that he needed. If he was going to go out there and show that he was that guy, pal, and show his level in the division, he needed to go out there and make a statement. That's exactly what he did here. And also did it at a time whenever, he nearly fought Bobby Green during fight week. He seems like he's raising his level of interest in a lot of fans' eyes. He's becoming a bigger name. What did you think about his win on Saturday, and also kind of his interesting fight week, to put it mildly?
Man, he's definitely getting himself out there, right? He's doing it right. To an extent, I'd say, right? I'm talking fight-wise. You know, he performed the way you want a young fighter, especially one who's now ranked this high. I think the ranking should be up by now. I actually haven't checked. I actually tried to check earlier in the day, and they hadn't updated yet. And they still haven't, Josh. I just went on here, and they're still not updated while we're doing this live. So, that's a bit disappointing. But regardless, yeah. I predicted it, you know? Like, I feel pretty good about this one. I didn't expect it to go down like that, though. That was a lot more epic than what I thought. I thought it was to be back and forth. I thought it was going to potentially go to distance. I thought there was going to be a lot of scrambles. But the way he finished it, man, that was it, right? That's the way you had to do it. The only thing, though, for him is I don't think he's asking for this title shot. I think he's going to need at least one more at this time. I think the good thing, though, he will be in the mix. At least he'll be in the mix, at least with those names of Islam, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and I think he is now in those. He will be involved with those names now, no matter which I think is great, especially for the guy who just turned 27. Has such a. I always bring this up, man. Like, hopefully a 10+ year career ahead of him, and fuck, dude, and he's still. I believe he's still not even a finished product, so he's still gonna get better. And if he's this good now, what's gonna happen down the line, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, dude. He's a guy that I don't think he'll get a title shot next. Now, I could, maybe. Weirder things have happened, right? There's a lot worse. Colby Covington's fighting for a title in like a week, dude. What are we doing here?
You're not wrong.
You could do a lot worse than Arman Tsarukyan. At the same time, he just got this win at a time where the division's pretty.
It's
stacked.
all good, Josh.
Gaethje has a claim. Oliveira has a claim. What are you gonna say?
I say it's all good because Proper 12 is here. Could you imagine they gave Conor a title shot?
Well, Conor's too busy apparently running for the president of Ireland to fucking come back to fighting.
Really?
So.
That's cool.
I don't know if that's confirmed, but he's been teasing it online and is, it's somebody who knows nothing about the political state of Ireland.
They have a lot going on.
Yeah, I know that we're not going to get into it. But I do know that he's called for stuff like banning immigrants if they break the law once, which is hilarious when you look at Conor McGregor's thing, his rap sheet. But that's the only thing I have to add about it.
But he was training with Brendan Loughnane though earlier this week or this past week. I don't know if you saw that training footage or sparring. Actually, it was kind of like light sparring footage.
I did see that. I don't think he'll end up running for president of Ireland, but dude, weirder things have happened.
Hey.
The guy.
Tito Ortiz ran for mayor. Conor could definitely run for some sort of political position, right?
Well, and I hate to be the guy that brings this up too, but you know, and even we're used to it by now because it's been so long. But the guy Trump was president, and before his job before that was deciding whether Meatloaf or Chael Sonnen was more equipped to run a fake company. You know what I mean? Like, so we're weird shit in 2024. So maybe Proper 12, he will come back and he'll get a title shot or become president of Ireland. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, Arman Tsarukyan, dude, big times for the division. Big times for the division. I don't think he'll get a title shot. Could I see it? You know, maybe if like scheduling difficulties, or maybe they have like, oh, you know, this would be a big fight for Abu Dhabi or something. I could see him maybe finding himself in one of those situations, you know, but more than likely no. He'll still need one big one, and I'm gonna throw this one out there, Angel. I don't know how you feel about it. Dustin Poirier at UFC 300. What do you think?
I'm DTF, man. I'm down for any of those names, honestly. I think that's the one good thing about the current like rankings and kind of the people that are in those positions. I don't think any of those matchups are not appealing to me. You know what I mean? I think they all interest me in some capacity. Whether it's Dustin, whether it's Justin, whether it's Charles or Islam, I'll be there. You know, I want to see this kid's whole career until he retires. I do think he's a special talent. The other big thing that he has kind of going against him right now, though, Josh, he only has one win over currently ranked lightweight. So, I believe everybody else has in like around him has upwards of 3 or 4. So obviously that kind of is another thing. But hey, like you said, the UFC does what the UFC wants. So who the fuck am I at? Who the fuck am I at? Who the fuck am I?
Yeah, who the fuck are we, dude? I mean, but anyways, I mean,
struggled a little bit there. I got it out there.
No, you're good. But like, I mean, who the fuck even knows? I mean, the reality is that, yeah, he's gonna need another big one. I tried to pull up the UFC rankings right now just to get an idea, but even the UFC rankings aren't working for me. So,
isn't it weird?
Weird. They fucked up their site, man. But regardless,
do you see? Because it says last updated today.
Yeah. So they just fucked it up basically. But yeah, Arman needs another big name. Like I said, I think Poirier, dude. I think Poirier at UFC 300, maybe even winner gets a title shot. Because Dustin said that he still wants one more. You know, he still wants big fights. That'd be a big fight, but maybe he wouldn't take it unless there's a title shot potentially on the line, you know. And shit, if he could beat Arman, I wouldn't have any issue with giving him one. But yeah, I mean, division's in a weird spot right now. Islam even wants to fight, but apparently the UFC is keeping him on ice, so.
I think it's because they want to set him up for a pay-per-view, like if they can get him for 300. But I don't know if that'll be around Ramadan or not. I think I actually saw someone actually break this down like fully of like, I don't know if you've seen this, Josh. There was like, I don't know if it was a Twitter thread or a YouTube video, but they crossed out all the people who wouldn't be available and factors that could play into them not being at UFC 300. I wish I could find that and send it to you. I'm sad I never saved it. If I do come across it again, then I will, but it was very interesting. I'll put it like that. It really made it seem like, what the fuck are they going to do? Like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of choices, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they are in kind of a weird spot, and that's something that even guys like, you know, Max Holloway offered. He's like, you know, they don't have a whole lot of guys for UFC 300, so I'll fight UFC 300, you know?
He'll fight someone.
He will. I mean, the reality is that they have a lot of, people who have already pitched themselves for UFC 300 too. So, I mean, we'll talk about her in a couple of minutes. Miesha Tate, she just pitched a Holly Holm rematch, you know. Clay Guida said he wants on it. I mean, Holloway already said. McGregor, obviously, Prop at 12, you know, if he's not, you know, running a campaign, he might be on it, you know. So, yeah, dude, fun times. But I do want to go ahead and move one down because, I mean, I guess I don't really know what to say about this one. Jalen Turner nearly murders Bobby Green in the co-main event. This looked like one of those fights that you see on Live Leak, if you catch my drift.
Jesus, Josh.
I mean, Bobby, how many unconscious punches did he take? Like what, like 12 or something? I mean.
One too many.
Yeah, I mean, one too many, you know. Arman Tsarukyan wanted this fight to go on for 5 more minutes, but I think we got our fill, you know.
That was a bit weird. Weren't you a little bit uncomfortable when you said that? I usually don't. I don't feel like I feel like it takes a lot for me to get uncomfortable. And
yeah, you know what?
I felt some type of. I don't know why. I felt some type of way. I wasn't upset, but there was
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, there was some discomfort in me. I don't know what it was. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
There's something didn't sit right with me. I don't know what it was.
No, fuck that, Angel. I mean, I've been very upfront about the fact, since Arman Tsarukyan's first UFC fight, I've been hyping him up. But now, like, he pulled that shit with Bobby Green, and now I'm like,
you're like, fuck.
Dude, Benoit
yes,
Saint-Denis, he's the future, bro. I'm just hitching my wagon to a new horse, you know? Like,
damn, dude, look at you just jumping around.
Fuck, dude.
I'm sure you're popular.
Yeah, I was popular in college. But yeah, dude, fucking Arman Tsarukyan, dude. Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy, hell of a fighter. Does not seem to be like, I don't even know why he's beefing with Bobby Green either. So
I think it was just they would just happen to be there. It was 10. The tensions are high. People cutting weight. Stressful situation. Boards get exchanged. If they're in the same division, both guys are ranked. I don't know. I think it was just a combination of a lot of things. If I have to, kind of deduce or break it down a little bit for us there. But even then, you're not wrong. Odd because they weren't competing against each other.
Yeah. Well, it is very odd, but I mean, just to kind of move on to the co-main event. I mean, it was very hard to watch Bobby Green getting just bludgeoned out there, and he's a guy who took this fight. I thought, Jalen Turner coming in at short notice, he needed the win. Good for him. It sucked to see Bobby Green take that much damage, especially considering he's 37. I mean, he just seemed to be getting back into it, man. Maybe making a run for the top 10. So that really did suck to see. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Jalen Turner, he got the win that he needed. What did you think about his actual performance on Saturday?
Good, man. I mean, for coming out on short notice, what do you weigh in, like 180 pounds before you started cutting weight or something like that when you got the call?
Yep, 180.
Yeah, no, I mean, credit to him, man. I didn't think it would go well for him just because Bobby Green was it seemed as he was having this kind of resurgence in his career, kind of this moment, and on top of that, he had this guy coming on short notice, coming off some losses, but still being very competitive. It just didn't seem like it was set up for Jalen Turner to necessarily succeed. And like I said, Bobby Green had a lot of good things going on that made it seem like, okay, maybe he could continue this and take out another young guy in the process and continue this hype train. But he ended up falling short, man. I mean, that finish was, dude, I've never seen someone, did he lose his equilibrium? It had to have been, because when he went back like that, I was like, what? I've never seen a guy in the UFC kind of do that kind of movement like that outside of our boy Shane Burgos, which was a little different when against Edson Barboza, if you recall that fight, where he had like the delayed reaction. That one was very weird and a little scary, but this one was like, oh shit, he's going.
Yeah. I mean, look, dude, definitely hard to watch, to put it lightly. You mentioned the Shane Burgos. I thought the same thing, dude. On Saturday night watching it, it was tough to watch. It was very tough to watch. I joked that it was like a live leak video, but goddamn, I mean, I was watching, like, I didn't even have sound on or anything, so was like the commentary like freaking out and shit?
When Bobby Green was face down on the ground and getting still punched, they were like, it's, what's going on? Why are they having to stop it? Terrible stoppage. And then Bobby Green stops moving and it's still getting punched. Then they started freaking out even more.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was like a Dan Hardy situation, like
no.
Dan Hardy, Herb Dean, like fucking yelling at him,
But it could have turned into it though, to be honest, and I don't think anybody could have blamed him. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, it was very bad, and that's very unfortunate, man, very unfortunate. And I know the guy who did it, who let Bobby Green take a bunch of punishment. I guess he like Dana said, like he apologized and knew that he fucked up, and like. I mean, it's good to see some self-awareness. I mean, that's better than like...
I think it's better than not saying anything at all to the fighter, right?
That's better than Mario Yamasaki,
Kerry Hatley, by the way, that's who it was.
Kerry Hatley, he let Bobby Green be a fighter on Saturday.
He was letting him be a warrior, dude. He let
him be
You know what we didn't talk about like a week or two ago? We didn't talk about Mario Yamasaki's return to major MMA, dude. He was in the fucking PFL.
Go ahead, talk about it.
I was just saying, he was back. He was back in the PFL. I think he did an all right job, if I remember right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing that, and dude, that is seeing. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I gotta be honest with you. I was a little bit on some ELYXR code Soundoff at the time, and I was on ELYXR code Soundoff at the time, and I saw fucking in Mario Yamasaki, he shows up in the cage wearing the smart glass and he makes the heart, and it was like a fucking jump scare, dude. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing here? You know, like.
You got hit with the fucking Punisher meme. No. It's literally that.
What's Mario Yamasaki doing here? No, like.
Yeah, but, I don't even know what fight he reffed. I wish I knew off the top of my head. I just remember seeing that popping up in my Twitter feed as the PFL was having their.
Well, it's good that we don't remember. It's a good thing that we don't remember. Let's just put it like that, you know, because that means he did an okay job. So we'll give Mario Yamasaki that small credit.
So I got you.
But yeah, man. I mean, in terms of the rest of this card, I said it that it was arguably one of the greatest UFC fight night cards of all time, at least in recent memory. Which ones do you want to talk about, man? A whole lot of bangers on this one.
Oh man, come on, Josh. We need to talk about the fight that arguably should have been the co-main event, in my opinion. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Rob Font. Holy fuck, he has arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, obviously I want to talk about it, but I kind of want to let you lead the way on this one just because I'm excited. I feel like I have a lot to say, so I'm going to let you kind of take over here a little bit.
Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, Deiveson Figueiredo, I was admittedly, you know, Dace de Guerre, the God of War. I was very iffy on this move. I think I said that on the show last week. Not really on the move, but in terms of how he'll perform, you know. He needed to move up to bantamweight. But even against Rob Font, he didn't look like the bigger guy in there. But dude, the power carried up. You know, I mean, it looked like almost like the best case scenario for a guy like Deiveson Figueiredo moving up. Like, yeah, he didn't look that big in there, but it looks like all of his attributes, like, he looks like he has the same power moving up in weight, you know, like he looked fast out there too. Like he looked faster than Rob Font in that fight. I mean, I was very, very impressed, but I know that you want to talk about it, so go ahead and give me your thoughts on his win.
I mean, look, and the other thing is, like I mentioned it last week and I talked about it. Another thing we gotta remember is it wasn't just his physical talents. I mean, the guy legitimately had good techniques, was good on the ground, had pretty solid, like, technical striking. Like, if he moves up and the weight comes on well and maybe and the power does transfer over, then he could have a lot of success at this weight class, especially because he's been a former champ. Now, whether or not they give him that love, I don't know, but I think they should because he beat a ranked opponent and put hell of a work. And like I said, it seems like his power transferred over, and like I said, he's a talented fighter and he performed. I am surprised. I think if we at the time, like I was going back and forth on this. I think I ended up Rob Font near the end, but on the day of, I think I ended up switching David Deiveson. I'm a little sad we didn't get to pick on this one, but at the same time, I do think the Rob Font matchup was pretty good as far as all the ranked opponents going forward. I think all the fights are going to be significantly harder. And like I said, right now we don't have access to UFC rankings for some fucking reason, so I don't know who else he could potentially fight. But I mean, we can kind of like off the top of our head, right? Like guys like Petr Yan, who I'm assuming are up there, Chito Vera, who else? Aljo Marab, and I can't think who else would be like middle of the like other middle. Maybe like I'm sure Dom is there somewhere, but just like throw a few names out there. I'm not sure who they'll give him next, but I hope he has a relatively decent fast turnaround. And he said he did. I think he tweeted something out. I want to be back in there 2 to 3 months, which I respect the fuck out of that. And I think that also makes him. I'm sure he's also realized, like, holy fuck, you know, I'm 35, maybe, I think he's 35, maybe 35 going on 36. Like, I need to get the ball rolling at this next weight class if I want to become a champ and have this kind of legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he went ahead and called out, you know, Sean O'Malley, dude. Yeah, and I respect that. And I don't think that's necessarily a great matchup for him. But he's a dog. I'd be down to see that potentially down the line. I was very, you know, surprised at how dominant he was. I think that's kind of my main takeaway. I thought maybe he'd be able to beat Rob Font, but I didn't expect him to do it at the ease in which he did. I mean, he just beat the fuck out of him on Saturday. So yeah, very impressed. I'd love to see him face somebody, you know, highly ranked next. But, you know, dude, your guy that you're pumped about coming out of this one is Figueiredo. I'm fucking pumped about the kid out of Philly, Sean Brady, dude.
He's back.
He is so fucking back. I know that he took off a year, and, you know, he had some health issues, and we know all that. and he was facing the guy in Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum moved down to welterweight. He looks fucking great, Angel. He looked great. Dude, I mean, he's never looked that good at 170, ever. And he's finally making the jump. He's coming off a winner, Chris Curtis. Dude, not close. Another fight that just wasn't close, and he just dominated him, dude. And Sean Brady, he did an interview afterwards. He's like, I honestly expected Kelvin to, be a lot stronger and be a lot better in there. He wasn't trying to be mean about it. He was just being for real, So, and that's the same page here. But dude, I mean, just so impressive. Not even competitive. What did you think about his win over the weekend?
Good, very good. I mean, look, what I thought at the time was, look, if we had the Sean Brady before, I think he could potentially have this kind of performance. But at the same time, if the weight change does help Kelvin, and we see that what Kelvin could be at his peak, this fight's going to be a heck of a time. Sadly, we didn't end up getting that. But we did get something, I mean, still great in Sean Brady returning and after such a long time. And look, I think it was a good matchup because it was a guy who was ranked in a different weight class. He is coming down, which is harder than going up. But a guy who's game, and Sean Brady looked good and still showed he has all these physical attributes and that. I just hope that let's see, can he continue this? Like I said, he had his first pro loss. This guy was at one point in time 15-0, undefeated. That fucking guy, and I'd argue before Shockbot, before Jack Della and Ian Gary got in the mix in the rankings, when we were talking about that ranked prospect at welterweight, it was fucking Sean Brady. There was no other name before that. Obviously, these guys were coming up. They were trying to build up their name, but that guy was fucking Sean Brady. And he still is that guy. Obviously, now that time has kind of gone by, since the loss, and guys like Ian Gary, Jack, Shockbot have climbed up and established their names in the division. And they're all in the mix. I mean, like I said, the thing about 170, dude, I think 170 is full of fucking killers. It might be the most competitive division in the UFC right now from 1 through 15. I mean, all those matchups are extremely difficult. If you put the 15 guy against the number 5 guy or the 1 guy against the 3 guy, they're all great and they're all hard. There's no easy fights in that division whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not wrong. And that it's an excellent division. It has some incredible guys on the way up. And also just guys that are finally starting to find the rhythm under him. Like you mentioned, Sean Brady was a guy that we thought could be we really did keep him in that conversation with a lot of other young killers. And that loss to Belal Muhammad kind of made people step back a little bit. But he's still so talented. I mean, and like he talked about, he broke his nose early in that one. It is what it is. He's still very talented, and he's still a fucking killer, dude. I'm very excited to see what he does next. And he's still young. I mean, he's just turned 31, but that 31's a bit deceiving. He doesn't have a whole lot of miles, really. The only real fights he got tested was literally the Belal Muhammad one, which he lost, and then also Chiesa kind of gave him some issues in that third round. So, he still has not taken much damage, still has a lot of potential. So, very excited to see what he can go ahead and do moving forward. Yeah, dude. I mean, in terms of the rest of this card, I mean, Clay Guida, I thought he deserved the nod. I got to be honest with you.
What a dog, right? Though, you got to say that first. What a fucking dog, dude. Clay Guida is a fucking gladiator. I was fucking, because look, we were running late to get back home for this, and I was like, dude, we better get there before the Clay Guida fight. And we got there, I want to say, right after the Miesha Tate fight, going into the main card, so we got to catch pretty much everything after that. And I was not disappointed at all.
Yeah, I think you could have made a case for rounds 2 and 3 for Guida. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Yeah, I mean, he said he wants to fight at UFC 300. They got to give him it, dude. They have to have one veteran on there. I mean, I don't think Jim Miller's going to make it now, because that'd be a 2-month turnaround. So
he's one of the last, what is it, Strikeforce guys, right?
Yeah, I think Strikeforce. Yeah, he was the first Strikeforce lightweight champion, I believe.
So he's one of the, as far as in the UFC though, fighters left from at all, whoever fought in Strikeforce, I believe he's one of the last.
Yeah.
Feud. Who else fought in the Strikeforce era who's still active in these feuds? Have you have to talk? Well, I guess Miesha Tate, right?
That's true, Miesha. I mean, technically, Nick Diaz hasn't retired, right?
Whoa, Josh.
No, I mean, I can't think of too many guys, man. I mean, most of the relevant, Cyborg's still fighting. Rockhold's still around technically.
Well, we're talking UFC though, active in the UFC.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like in the UFC, that'd be an even better question. No, I don't think there's really too many.
Because not even a guy like Jim Miller. Jim Miller never fought in Strikeforce.
Correct. Yeah.
He was a fucking IFL guy and a Ring of Combat guy.
I think OSP came in through Strikeforce, I want to say. I think he's still around. Anthony Smith, that's another one. He fought in Strikeforce 2 or 3 times.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's fought everywhere though too.
That's true. Yeah, not that many motherfuckers, man. It's kind of crazy.
That'd be a fun question to ask. Like if we were to do what's the word I'm looking for? Like a fun little mini game where I ask you like little random questions on like Josh name the 5 remaining. Like I don't know if this is Red Stamp, but like hypothetically, like the 5 remaining Strikeforce fighters in the UFC, or 5 fighters who fought in Strikeforce who are still active in the UFC.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that'd be fun. I mean I can't think of anybody. I mean, I bet there's some women. Is Alexis Davis still active? I think Alexis Davis is still with the UFC, right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, I don't know. I bet there's some women in there that I can't think of right now. But yeah, I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, dude. I mean, good for Clay Guida. They better give him that UFC 300 fight. I don't care if it's Joe Lozon said he wants one more. Jim Miller said he wants to do it. They have to give him another veteran, and there's a multiple they can give him. So let's just fucking do it. Let's not be ridiculous about this. Let's give the OGs what they want. All right. Dustin Stolfitz picked up a win. Miesha Tate picking up a win over Julia Avila. I gotta be honest with you. I don't know how you felt about this one going in. I did not expect this fight to be so dominant at all.
I was very unsure about it because Julia Avila had been like inactive, and like we talked about it in the pre-show for like a number of different reasons, not necessarily by her choice. And Miesha's looked I don't know how to properly word it. I don't want to say shaky, and I don't think bad's the other word for it, but I guess up and down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not great against maybe up and down. I don't know what the proper. How I could properly phrase it, but it just hasn't been all up, Mm-hmm. But this is a very high though in her return though. Like, I think this is probably one of the best moments since her return, and it's kind of nice to see like it's not over yet, and the fact that she's still very good and beating these young gals. I think she's even though I don't know how much younger Julia Avila is though. I don't think it's by much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I was very, very surprised at the fashion in which she dominated Miesha did. And she went into this fight admitting that, this could be the final one.
Not now.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, dude.
Dude, she's fucking back, dude. I mean.
They gotta drop the bet. I mean, we gotta talk about it, right? Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, UFC 300?
Holly Holm, Miesha Tate through UFC 300. It makes way too much sense for them not to make it, especially considering at the same exact time that the winner of that has to be in the conversation for a title shot. This division's very bad, and it makes a lot of sense. It's been over 7 years since their first fight. And out of curiosity, did you see Miesha's reasoning for wanting the rematch?
Oh no, what was it?
She said that everybody thinks she got her ass kicked in that fight, and everybody talks about how, what a comeback it was. But she correctly stated that, and it's something that's also, that when she said it, what? She's got a point there, that fight would have been a draw. It wasn't even that big of a comeback, that fight was competitive. Had she stayed on top for that round, that fight would have been a draw. Wouldn't even been, so people always present
Are they talking about the one where she submitted her in the end?
Correct. And people always talk about how it's this crazy comeback, and Miesha was like,
it
really wasn't though. It really wasn't. I was in that fight,
Josh was like, I was there. I was there present.
Yeah. I mean, she is correct. There's always, as a former Miesha Tate stan, that was something that annoyed me at the time. So.
Were you a Miesha Tate?
Not really, but I was a big fan. Who wasn't,
Were you a bigger Ronda fan than a Miesha Tate fan at the time? I mean, obviously you got to live that period in women's fighting. How were actually at the time, whenever women's divisions came into UFC, who were your favorite fighters at the time in the women's division outside of the big names like Ronda, like Miesha? Because there really wasn't that many big now you have a variety of things. We talk about several women fighters. If you keep up with the UFC or just MMA in general, on a pretty regular basis. You can name a number of female fighters where I think a period in time that definitely wasn't a thing, and now, we could be like, oh, we like fucking Yasha Now, Stamp Fairtex, Leah McCord, and this is someone who probably, and I'm talking about like people who like regularly watch MMA and maybe even check out other things. And maybe even the average kind of regular casual could probably name more than a few female fighters that are not champs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, personally, Angel, whenever you think back to that era, I gotta go with Cindy D'Angelo. I'm joking around, but yeah, you make a very good point that, the depth of women's MMA has gotten much, much better, especially compared to when it first was a thing, across multiple divisions too. Like, I will say that women's bantamweight right now is a terrible division, but women's flyweight and women's strawweight are like, genuinely two of the best divisions in the UFC period right now, it's just a matter of letting those women actually fight. Like, why the fuck is Weili Zhang still sitting on the sideline? You know what I'm saying?
They're saving her, man. They're saving her for something.
Something. Yeah. I feel like that's what you can say about half the UFC roster right now. They're saving them for something, but yeah. And anyways, man, in regards to the rest of this card, man, UFC Austin, there were other big moments. Cody Brundage and Dracarkos getting slam knockouts.
Back to back, by the way.
Exactly. There were 14 slam knockouts. I think it was 12, actually. There were 12 slam knockouts going into fight night, and we got 2 back to back. That's fucking crazy, dude.
It was the last one, the Jordan Levitt one, by the way, or was there one in between that? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't that crazy? Like, if there was that much time between them, and on top of that we got 2, like, that's just wild. Like, I don't know what the stats would be on that, but the numbers are probably insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it. Dude. It's pretty fucking crazy. It's pretty crazy. And, I want to say that, like you mentioned, Jordan Levitt's the last one. I can't remember for sure. But, yeah, Elhor Pateri getting knocked out in a crazy fight, man. Odolfo Belto, he did it for Shogun, Jared Gooden getting a win. This is just a crazy card, dude. We had 3 fights, period, make it to the judges' scorecard. So it was an all-time one. And any final thoughts on this UFC Austin card before we go ahead and move on?
No, man. I thought it was fun, and if you missed that on it, and you think about if you should rewatch it or not rewatch it, I'd say absolutely rewatch it. They were all great, in my opinion. I don't think there was Was there a bad fight on this card? Like, genuinely, Josh, from top to bottom, out of the 12 fights, was there a bad fight? Like, I don't think there was. They pretty much all ended in a finish. 2 of them went the distance, and even then, those 2 that went the distance were still pretty good fights. Actually, 3 fights went the distance. My bad. But yeah, no, definitely. If you want to rewatch one, take some time out of your day, or like I said, if you missed that on it, or go ahead and go back and rewatch. I might even actually go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, there's not a single bad fight across the entire card. That's about the way to put it. All bangers the entire night. So, yeah, man, very hard to find an issue with it. That being said, we got more MMA to talk about. We got a card to preview going down this Saturday night from the UFC Apex, UFC Vegas 83. This fight was supposed to be a Shanghai card. It will instead be going down in Las Vegas. In the main event, Song Yadong. We know the story here, coming off a knockout win over Ricky Simone, slowly but surely rising his way up the bantamweight rankings. He did suffer a loss of Corey Sandhagen in the biggest fight of his career, but that was a banger, man. It was a doctor stoppage, taking on the rising Chris Gutierrez. A similar story, right? Coming off a big win. Prior to that, he lost to Pedro Munoz, but prior to that, he had a huge win streak. He had his winning streak ended at the hands of Pedro Munoz in KC back in April. But look, man, both these guys, 2 young guys looking to break their way into the contendership at bantamweight. What do you think about this one, man? 5 rounds, it should be a lot of fun.
Look, for a while there, we knew that Song Yadong would be headlining this card originally in Shanghai, no longer there, now in the Apex in Vegas. And we ended up getting Chris Gutierrez. There was rumors of Piotr Jan at the time. Mainly, that ended up not coming a reality, sadly. I think that would have been a great matchup, a hard fight for Song Yadong, and a hard fight too for Piotr. I think that would have been a good and the correct matchup for him. But I don't know what he's planning on doing, but we could skip over him for now. Fuck, dude. Like, Chris Gutierrez, I thought he was going to take that leap in KC, dude, just a few months back when we were there live in the T-Mobile Center. Ends up falling short against Brandon Munoz, comes back fighting a fighter's name who I've heard mentioned. I've heard the pronunciation for it. I can't think of it, but I've heard it. I know how it is. Respectfully, not to offend anybody, I will not say it. But, yeah, he bounced back after his Pedro Munoz loss earlier this year. And taking on the young and rising Song Yadong, dude. We always talk about this. So young and so good already. I remember when we talked about him several months ago, when he was fighting, it would have been last year now. God. I mean, I guess it is several months if I could put it like that. But when he was fighting Corey Sandhagen at the time, I was bringing up, like, dude, this kid, for the age he's at and, like, the ranking he has now in the UFC, for being 26, just turned 26 a few days ago. Mm-hmm. To be ranked in bantamweight, a division that's full of killers, and be this fucking good and have the team that he does around him at Team Alpha Male with a great coach in Uriah Faber and, you know, like the other number of great fighters that have gone through there, and that are still active in there. I mean, he is set up for success. Like, I think I will be disappointed if Song Yadong does not at least hold the 135 strap at least one time. Mm. It's something that we've talked about several times. Look, I know I pump him up, I raise him up, but think about how good he is right now. He's 26 years old, and he's fought a bunch of amazing fighters in this division and is looking this fucking good. He's taking on Chris Gutierrez, tough guy. He's younger, 32, still a good age for bantamweight, not old by any means. Underrated, had a silent climb up, but I always mention them on this podcast being like, guys, Chris Gutierrez, he's coming on. He's not necessarily getting all those crazy highlights or anything like that, but he's there. I think this is a hard matchup, man. Like, I think this could be, I'm not going to say this is really a crossroads matchup, but what this really reminds me of, Josh, and I think this is a perfect example, the Arman Tsarukyan and the Mateus Gamrot fight, where Chris Gutierrez in this situation to an extent is Gamrot, and Song Yadong to a certain extent is Arman. And right? I mean, I know Chris is not ranked as highly, I think, as Mateus was going into the fight, but I think that's probably if you were to make a direct comparison, I think that's what it is, Josh. You have a young guy, an experienced guy who's a vet, who's also rising, and this is going to be the crossroads. This will take Chris Gutierrez up into the higher echelon, those bigger fights, the Umars, those kind of names, the Piotrs, or, it'll set him back a little bit. And for Song Yadong, this could potentially propel him into those bigger top 5 fights, kind of where Arman's in the position he's in now.
Mm-hmm. That's a great comparison. I didn't really think about it, but great comparison, dude. And like you said, it's not exactly equal, but it's pretty close, dude. I will say, dude, as interesting as this fight is, I will say the thing that I disagree about with that Arman and Gamrot fight, that fight seemed more like it's, how can I put this? That fight seemed more like they were trying to figure out which of these guys has the higher ceiling. This feels like more of I don't want to say a spotlight fight for Song Yadong, but it seems like they much more believe in him than they believe in Chris Gutierrez. Am I on the wrong side to think that?
Yeah, but those reasons are not, why those reasons, you know what I mean? They see him as a giant marketing piece. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, he's talented. Let's say it as it is. It's not just where he comes from. But I do want to make it clear that the reason that they probably do think that is because where he comes from in the market that he could potentially open up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And if he becomes the first Chinese male champion, Josh, I mean, that's a whole nother
world, dude.
Yeah.
Whole nother world.
Male Chinese champ.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man. I think it's an interesting fight. I will say that I'm similar to the UFC. I'm much more of a believer in Song Yadong's. I think that he has a much greater peak than Chris Gutierrez will have in his career. I think he's the future. I think he's the younger guy. And he's seemingly only getting better too. So I'm gonna go ahead and take him to get the win here. What do you think about this potential fight night matchup? Do you think Chris Gutierrez will be able to pull the upset? According to BetMGM, Song Yudong, minus 350. Not sponsored, by the way. I have to throw that out there, but just trying to give you just the betting line.
Once again, I really hardcore disagree with those odds. I think that Chris Gutierrez has been getting extremely disrespected in this matchup. Mm-hmm. Don't be surprised if he comes out here and makes an upset. Mm-hmm. Cause I think he could shock a lot of people. He's that good. He has that potential. He's more than capable of putting himself in a good position to win this fight. I mean, shit, his own teammate, Jonathan Martinez, just recently went over Adrian Yanez and Said Nurmagomedov, and I believe he was an underdog potentially in both of those. They come out of the same gym and they train together, and they have different styles, but they both have very, very great kicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that although I am picking Song Yudong to get the win here, I do agree with you that I think those odds are pretty disrespectful. Chris Gutierrez I also think that's kind of like Chris Gutierrez's thing, though. I don't think anybody, during his ongoing winning streak, I remember we were talking about how, no, they were never paying any attention to him. They were never giving him big fights. Nobody was paying any attention, and he tried to keep on winning and winning and winning and winning and winning, and eventually got the Frankie Edgar fight. But I mean, that was the corpse of Frankie Edgar. That was his last fight, so on and so forth. So, yeah, man, it's,
By the way, I'm looking right now, Josh, just because I was curious. Since joining the UFC, this is the biggest, jump he's had in, odds since his debut. Mm-hmm. In his debut against Ryan McDonald, he was a minus 290 favorite. Outside of that, pretty much all the fights after that, he's been, a kind of moderate favorite, if not just a near even.
Well, not necessarily. I don't mean, in terms of, he's been favored to lose all of his fights. I meant more in terms of disrespect. I meant
no. But I was just mentioning that. I was just bringing up the fact that these odds are the biggest difference he's had, the biggest, in comparison to all the other ones he had, just the biggest jump he's had.
Word, I understand. All right, yeah, man. I am going to go ahead and take Song Yudong to get the win. I think it should be a fun fight, though. I understand why they're the co-main event. But I'm honestly surprised that they didn't just elevate this fight to the main event. It feels like a UFC thing to do. Anthony Smith is stepping in here on very short notice. I believe he got this fight around a week ago. Yeah, 2 weeks notice. Coming off a win over Ryan Spann in August, he will now look to keep that momentum going against Khalil Roundtree, who has won 4 fights in a row, 3 of them by knockout. Look, man, very interesting decision for Anthony Smith to accept this fight. Lionheart, man. He's a dog. He's a dog. He's coming off a win, but stepping in on short notice against a guy who's won 4 fights in a row. I understand he's lower ranked, but damn, what do you think about this one?
For me, this fight was showing me if Anthony Smith is still got some miles, still has some miles on him. He's still willing. He has enough in the tank, to go forward. Because it seems like Khalil Roundtree's coming on, and like I said, look, to be honest, Josh, the last, let's say 3 Anthony Smith fights have been, rough. And obviously the Magomedov Ankalaev one ending in a injury, right? But it was, make of it what you will. The Johnny Walker fight, which was an odd one, right? You're hurting my family. The Ryan Spann split decision, which, there's been a lot of arguments over. But it was still, I think it was still a pretty good fight out of Anthony Smith for the most part. In comparison to the first one, though, not as great, right? Because he ended up getting the finish in that one. Yeah, no, man. For me, this would be the one. If Anthony Smith is, I think if there's any damage or any issues there, or he, the body's just kind of working against him, I think it might show in this fight because Khalil Roundtree is going to cause some damage.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, same page here. I think this is, look, I understood why Anthony Smith took this fight. It's probably a lot of money, stepping here on 2 weeks' notice. Khalil Roundtree is the lower-ranked guy. And I mentioned 4 wins. 4 wins against, less, the lower tier of competition, right? Anthony Smith's faced a lot better than this. At the same time, dude, he is so much damage throughout his life. He's on the wrong side of 35. The stat, the thing I always think about is that 35 stat. I can't remember which one it is, but fighters after the point of being 35, they don't drop off a cliff, but it's substantially harder. That's the point, especially when it comes to the top level. I think championship fighters are 2-30 or something if they're past the age of 35. Anthony Smith turned 35 earlier this year. He's taken a lot of damage. He looks like he's slower than his last few fights, and he's stepping in on 2 weeks' notice against a guy who's won 4 straight fights, including 3 by knockout. It's tough, man. I'm going to go and take Khalil Roundtree. I think it's just, I understood why he took it. I would not have. I'll put it like that. And Anthony Smith could win this fight. He's a very hard hitter. He has, he does have a lot of attributes. I believe he'll he'll be the taller guy in there. He will have he won't have the longer reach. I just checked that. Never mind. I'm glad I did.
That's surprising. It's, Khalil Rountree's like 6'1".
Yeah, Anthony Smith's 76-inch reach. Khalil Rountree's going to have a half reach advantage, so another thing in his favor. So yeah, I'm going to go and take Khalil Roundtree though. It'll be interesting, man. In terms of the rest of this card, is it UFC Austin? No. Are there some fun fights? Hell yeah, brother. Which fights do you most want to talk about?
Oh man, let me look at it. Let me see here. This one just got announced, Josh. So is it Sumatajiri will no longer be fighting Alan Nascimento. He will now be taking on Tim Elliott. Mm-hmm. Tim Elliott coming in on short notice. I respect the fuck out of that man, especially after suffering a loss to a young up-and-coming talent like Muhammad Makayev. Taking on a dog in Sumatajiri, dude. The last time we saw him, Josh, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the fight last year against Matt Schnell, where Sumatajiri, if I remember, I was looking great in the first round. Matt Schnell comes out in the second and says, "I will not die." Yeah. Almost kills the man, finished him late in the second. Somehow could have almost made it to the third. I mean, that was a wild ass fight. It's been over a year now since that. Funny enough, Tim Elliott and Sumatajiri were originally supposed to fight in 2021. So I guess now they both get to come together and make that fight actually happen. So that's exciting there.
100%. I mean, you mentioned that Sumatajiri fight, dude. That's one of those ones that lives like rent free in my fucking head.
I'm pretty sure we saw that one together.
We did, and I remember Matt Schnell, the image of Matt Schnell like standing over Sumatajiri, just them both covered in blood. It's like
I have to go back and rewatch that one, man.
It was one of the craziest fucking things I've ever seen, dude. I mean, it looked like a scene out of a fucking horror movie. And sometimes sometimes will say that on the show, but like actually, the amount of blood and the shit that happened in that fight. Oh my god. Yeah, man. Just unreal. But yeah, man, I'm happy you went ahead and mentioned that Tim Elliott, man. I'm happy to see him back. Kansas City's finest. I think technically he lives in Lee Summit. We don't talk about that. We count him, But yeah, man.
I think he moved to Vegas recently. I could be wrong, or Texas.
Bullshit. Are you serious?
I think he's no longer a Kansas City native anymore, sadly.
Well, you know what? We're still gonna rep it. Who gives a fuck?
Right?
Who gives a shit, dude? He lived here for long enough, Casey's finest, no longer Casey's finest, it appears. Angel, looks like you're gonna have to pick up the mantle and get to the UFC and fly the flag of Kansas City.
Could you imagine?
Anyways, man. Yeah. In terms of the rest of this card, there are some other fun fights. I'm also very excited to see the return of my boy, Tatsuro Tara. This guy, dude, flyweight is fucking popping, dude. I mean, you gotta say it. With Muhammad Makayev, you also got Tatsuro Tara. Now, granted, he's also kind of experimented at bantamweight, but I believe this fight's gonna be down at flyweight against Carlos Hernandez. Yes, it will be. Okay, yeah. I mean, this kid out of Japan, undefeated, 14-0. Has looked dominant in every single one of his fights thus far. Excited to see him back, man. And still also in his early 20s. I mean, I mentioned Makayev, dude. This kid's 23. So, very excited to see what he can do this Saturday, man. That kid's the fucking future, man. And flyweight is a division, like I said, has a lot of, for some reason, the youngest guys, I feel like, in terms of guys that are slowly on the rise, like guys in their early 20s, so excited to see that, man. Steve Garcia is back. Big fan of him. Mean machine. Every time he goes out there, he puts on a fucking show. Andre Muniz, he struggled a bit. Gonna go ahead and come back against Park Jun-young. Should be fun.
By the way, underrated win streak right there too. I believe I just looked at it. 4 wins straight. Potentially going to throw himself in the mix in middleweight. I think that's actually one of the most not known by anybody win streaks in the division currently, or that anybody probably knows about.
You're correct, dude. You're absolutely right. And also, some of those wins, I mean, Albert Duriev is a guy who I remember thinking he was going to be very, very good. And he still might be. But Jung Young Park, that's who he defeated last time out, submitted him. I believe that was the first stoppage loss of Albert Duriev's career. So yeah, that was a big win. Also Eric Anders, man. So he's a guy, like you said, very low key, but he's making his way up the ranks, man. I'm excited to see him this week. Any closing thoughts on this card before we go and move on?
Look, I think there's still good fights and matchups. I think there could be some bangers on here. Not as strong as last week, but we are going into the end of the year, and we'll be closing. I think next week will be our final card, Josh, the pay-per-view.
I believe so. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get to close out the year. I'll get to see you one last time in 2023 as we go into beautiful 2024, and with whatever little fights we have left, and we got to talk about and Soundoff Awards later this month.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I'm excited for the Soundoff Awards, I always have so much fun doing that. That's like probably my favorite episode of the year, because we should get to reflect on the year, and we'll take some fan questions, I'm sure. We'll have some fun stuff, man.
And plus that, we know it's one of those shows we know it's going to happen no matter what. We know what's going to happen on that show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, to move on, that's all we got for UFC. However, we do have a little bit of boxing to go ahead and discuss, because we do have to talk about the return of King Ryan Garcia. King Ryan back in the ring, taking on the rising Oscar Duarte, who we talked about. I mean, he scored, I believe he ended this fight on a 9-fight win streak, all by the way of knockout. He was 26-1, last beat D'Angelo Keys, who actually, he's not a bad guy. He's so but granted, lower level of competition. We come to the story. Oscar Duarte going in there, he was competitive for a bit. He had some big shots. He went to the body a lot. It was clear that both of these guys had game plan, very, very clear game plans. Ryan Garcia, though, in round 8, he catches him, ends up getting the knockout win, pretty much out of nowhere. But the hand speed was crazy, insane combination, though. What did you think about his win, his return to action, and then calling out Rolly Romero afterward?
I think that's a good fight. I thought that was the direction he should go no matter what after this fight. A guy who has some relevance, some kind of attention in this division, has some pretty decent wins, I'd say. And definitely will sell the fight, right? I mean, that's the other big thing. And look, Ryan doesn't need help selling pay-per-views or fights or anything like that. I mean, he has a massive loyal fan base, and like I said, we saw that in his fight with Tank, obviously. So, if that fight does end up happening, no worries as far as, that being, sold to the crowd. But, as far as the performance itself, I mean, look, there was moments, right, where I was a little confused. I thought that, I was wondering what Ryan was doing, but I later noticed, okay, this is his game plan. This is what he's doing. A lot of people did kind of dog him for his performance. I don't think it looked bad. It did look a little safe, right? But I think for a very true infighter in Oscar Duarte, I don't think there was anything wrong that Ryan did. I think he realized what he had to do, and he knew he had to find that perfect punch, and he did. It was later in the rounds. You kind of wonder, is this going to get away from Ryan, or is he going to be able to kind of find his way in this fight and get Oscar Duarte out of here? And he ended up doing that. Like you said, obviously incredibly fast, competition, a typical Ryan Garcia way to end a fight, right? It just, all speed.
Exactly. All speed, dude. And look, there were some people who kind of took the approach of, they thought, he sucked. And there were a lot of people talking shit on Ryan. I thought he looked fine. I think this was the bounce back win that he needed. He didn't do anything too crazy. He didn't show anything too crazy. But at the same time, first fight with Derek James, I liked a lot what I saw, And also, I think a fair bit of this was just Oscar Duarte being better than a lot of people expected. He was not a tune-up. He's not a guy that had just beaten nobodies and was complete shit. He was an interesting guy. He packed power, and there was a reason why his fight was competitive. Ryan was never going to go spark out this guy in round 1. That's just not who he is, and that's not who this guy is. So, yeah, man, I thought his performance was fine. Was it everything I wanted it to be? No. Did it kind of give me some pause for some of the bigger guys up at 140? Yeah, a little bit. But at the same time, look, I mean, Ryan is who he is at this point in his career. He's going to get better, hopefully. And if he just, focuses on training, keeps to the game plan, I think he'll be fine. It's just a matter of staying active, getting in there, getting those big fights. And I think a fight with Rolly Romero makes a lot of sense. I would love to see that next, So we'll see, though. We'll see. Coming off
it's a safe but difficult and right choice, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. But yeah, man. Any closing thoughts? Anything else we talk about with Ryan Garcia before we move on?
I mean, I think we pretty much went over it all well. I mean, as far as how down the line, I mean, how do you feel about some of these guys in this division, Josh? I mean, obviously he moved up to, what is it? Is it super lightweight now, or is it lightweight? Where's he sitting at now?
I believe it's super lightweight.
Yeah, I had to double
Permanently.
check. Because you know how these fucking boxing weight classes are, man. Fucking 5 pounds and you're in a new weight class.
I know, yeah.
I mean, look at his weight class, Josh. I mean, just to name off a few names: Teofimo Lopez, Regis Prograis, scary one here, Subriel Matias. If you know who that is, Josh, holy fuck, that guy's a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Sandor Martin, who I think is a dog in my opinion. Richard Comey, who I know is lower ranked former champ though. I know he suffered a few losses, but I think he's a difficult matchup, kind of interesting guy there in the mix. Just to name off a few. I mean, going forward, I mean, look, I think there is potential to build up Ryan in this division and get him going, but like I said, I do feel like there's some fucking killers in here. And like I said, my big one is that Super Matias guy, Josh. I mean, I don't know if you know this, Josh. He beat his last 5 opponents have all retired in their corner.
Damn.
I mean, think about that. At the professional, and by the way, he's fighting guys who are like 23-0, 30-0, 18-0, another guy who's 18-0, 62. I mean, guys who are trying to build up their career and get to the point to fight, big championship fights, and he's ending it.
Yeah.
With the corner stopping the fight. Also, Josh, I don't even, this guy fucking killed the guy.
Excuse me?
He like didn't kill someone like he didn't talking like the damage sustained after.
He actually did, huh?
The damage sustained after the boxing match with one of his opponents later resulted in the death of one of his opponents.
I did not know that. Today I learned.
Dude, this guy's fucking terrifying, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way.
He's 31, he's Puerto Rican, he's 5'8", he's reached 71, he's scary.
Damn, dude. Damn, that's crazy. I did not know that. Yeah, dude. I mean, I think we should go and move on, but I did not know that. This is pretty interesting.
Well, dude, I just shocked the shit out of you, didn't I?
You did. I had no idea. Speaking of guys who are getting killed, though, I'm not sure if Giga Chikadze, is out of his fight with Josh Emmett. Did you see, before we talk about who could possibly replace him, did you see the injury video?
Yeah, I saw the clip, dude. I heard the scream. It was terrible. Yeah,
Giga Chikadze tearing his groin. So we will, send him our thoughts and prayers. Fucking terrible thing to happen, dude. But yeah, I mean, unfortunate for him. But it does leave an opening on that UFC 296 card. Like you said, last card of the year. Who do you think who do you want to see face Josh Emmett? Now, granted, we don't even know if he will remain on this card. We don't know who he will face. I mean, we don't know if he wants a replacement opponent.
I think they should try, and I think Josh Emmett has come out and he does want to find an opponent.
Go ahead. So, yeah.
Yeah, but to kind of go into it, I think they should try to find someone. It's the last card of the year. I think, like I said, I believe Josh Emmett wants to fight. As far as available opponents, I mean, that's a little hard to say, right? Because we don't know everybody's current condition and kind of where they're at weight cutting wise. But a name that drop of a guy who kind of has some little hype right now that I thought would be fun is if Diego Lopez can make it, Josh, I'd be fucking down. That'd be 3 fights in 20. Actually, no, that'd be 4 fights in 2023. If he can make the call up, I think he should. Like I said, it's really hard without knowing kind of where everybody is at, and kind of like I feel like everybody's kind of fought not too long ago. I don't know. I don't believe Calvin Kattar could probably make that quick enough, but if he could, that'd be a fun one to run it back. I think that'd be interesting. I think another one, Joe Anderson Brito, a pretty recent guy who won. Maybe he can make that quick turnaround. I don't know if he could. That will get him into the rankings potentially, but I'd say those are probably like my 2 to 3 kind of options that I really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about how I feel too. I think Diego Lopez makes the most sense. And that's basically the fight that I want to see the most. But also that just kid, I'd watch that kid fight anybody. Realistically, they're probably going to give Josh Emmett, a guy that fought in the Contender Series probably 6 months ago and lost. I mean, that's probably the most realistic option. But if we're doing dream scenarios, fuck yeah, Diego Lopez all the way, dude. I mean, if I'm Dana White in the UFC and I can force fighters to accept fights, that's the one I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see. I mean, they are running out of time to go ahead and make this replacement fight. So hopefully we may even have an announcement, by the end of, the week. So we'll see. We're filming this episode a bit earlier in the week. So if there's already announcement by now, that's why. Yeah, man, that's basically all I got for that one. But I think we should go and move on to this news because this was a very big piece of news. It was quite controversial when it came out as well. Former UFC light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill was arrested last week on charges of aggravated domestic violence after reportedly assaulting his brother, and his first hearing is set for next year in January. Since then, his manager has released a statement, and many people are angry at the telling of the story, calling it domestic violence. And his managers got angry at, quote, clickbait media for calling it domestic violence and so on and so forth. As of now, Jamal Hill wants to, clear his name in court. We don't have a whole lot more details, but it is one of the bigger news pieces of the week. What did you see about the situation? What did you make of it?
Kind of everything everybody else saw. Obviously, he was having a lot of back and forth online there for a little bit with, I think, Ariel a little bit prior to this. So he obviously got trolled heavily, and a lot of people came out and kind of wanted to make fun of him for the situation. And look, when you read the headline, let's say, and not even saying Jamal Hill, but MMA fighter gets charged with domestic abuse, you think, holy fuck, this guy probably just beat his wife, right? And look, ended up not being his girl, because look, I'm not even gonna lie, because I only saw that headline, so I came to the conclusion of like, oh my god, my man just put hands on his girl, that's fucking terrible. Yeah. Then I proceeded to click the link, and like I said, that's what I thought at first glance. Then I proceeded to do more research and educate myself, and then finding out it was his brother, which is weird, because I was like, I wonder what happened there. And like I said, we don't have all these details yet. We don't know what all happened. We don't know if there was some sort of like family feud or argument, if there was, money involved, whatever it may be, right? We don't know. But, just a shitty scenario to be in, right? Nobody ever wants to be labeled anything, and, let alone especially the word, just like I said, when we think domestic abuse, a lot of the times we just think, man putting hands on his girl, when it's not necessarily always that. It could actually be the other way around too, And in this case scenario, it's brother and brother, or it could be brother and sister, or son and father, or whoever it could be, right? So, and like I'm not saying to make it I'm not saying it's any better or any of that, but just to, I didn't, like I said, my first conclusion was, holy shit, he just put hands on his girl. That's not what happened at all.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a good situation either. I think there were some people who were trying to say, like, you guys never fought your brother, and it's like, dude, Jamal Hill's 30. So it's like, dude, fuck, bro. I mean, not like
you must have never seen the Lozon brothers fight in their backyard on fucking Thanksgiving.
No, I mean, I've seen that happen too, but at least that was like, consensual, and they were both fighters, so it's just like, fuck, dude. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this. I don't have anything to really add. I guess we'll have to see how the situation plays out. Right. I did think a lot of the people who were trying to like defend it, like, you never fought your brother before. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know, like, I don't have a brother, so that's true, but I do a brother fight all the time, but like, Jamal Hill's 32 years old, dude, like, what are we doing here?
I'm an only child, I had no brother to ever fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, he's 32, bro, so what are we doing here? So it's
you're not wrong. And like I said, I wonder what happened. We don't know what happened. What if, and look, I'm not saying this, but let's say there was a situation where he might have done something wrong to another family member. I'm not saying that. Look, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to say that's what it is, but I'm just giving an example of, there's other things that could have led to there being an exchange that could be justified, even though societally and morally you don't want to hurt people, and let alone, because you're a professional fighter.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand. I thought people knew that domestic violence just meant that you're beating up somebody that's a part of your family.
No, dude, and look,
I'm not trying to be dick. I genuinely thought people
No, and look, I'll break it down a little bit more. In my head, like, I obviously I've known of that, but I didn't think that for some reason, you know what I mean? But that just goes to show how we're in a bubble, you know what I mean, in society. and we kind of jumped to that conclusion, like I said. But I clicked on it because I need to get more information. That's how I educated myself, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And that's all about, people just have to click on it. And, yeah, man, I mean, I don't have too many thoughts to add. I will say that people got, like, the reason why I thought before, like, maybe he hit a woman is probably because some of the stuff he said about hitting women. So that's probably, my own personal thoughts.
And
it had nothing to do with the title of the article. Like,
also, there's one other reason, Josh, that we will not mention on the show that will get us in trouble. But people have, they have certain thoughts. You know what I mean? They don't, not thinking right about people's character without, just making assumptions because of the way they look.
Yeah, that is correct as well. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it looks. And innocent until proven guilty, of course. So,
right.
Yeah. And we'll see in the trial, which the trial's next month, so. Or starts next month, excuse me. In terms of fun news, Robert the Bad Boy Despengi. He is the future of the UFC heavyweight division. Some of you guys may have seen him already. He is a former Taekwondo Olympian, 35 years old. He's a brick shit house. He's 6'7". And he got a knockout win in 4 seconds. Prior to that, he got a knockout win in 3 seconds. Prior to that, he got a knockout win in 12 seconds. He has his last 3 fights. He's finished within 16 seconds. Yeah, man, he returned to the cage earlier this week, got a knockout win, and was signed by the UFC, I believe, 10 minutes later. What do you make of all of this, this newest prospect signed to the UFC, Angel?
I want you to know, Josh, by the way, the post, that he was signed to the UFC and it showed that highlight and said he had like 15 seconds of cage time, went onto Instagram on ESPN MMA. That clip has been up for 22 hours now. It officially has 77,000 likes.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, right? I mean, look, the guy looks interesting. Like we said, former Olympian, bronze in the World Games too, in Taekwondo. Look, I mean, if he could develop himself, especially in heavyweight, it wouldn't take very long for him to become very, reach a high level. So if he has a skill set, then yeah, I think he can make it pretty far. I'm definitely very interested to see who they throw at first, like who his first matchup's going to be, because, I mean, only 4 fights, Josh, and literally seconds of cage time with no sort of grappling. That's a bit iffy once he reaches a high level.
Mm. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does at the top level. I mean, we really don't know much about this guy. I mean, we know a couple things, right? We know his background. We know that he's he's a massive human being. And you and I think talked about this in the green room a little bit. Basically know nothing about his ground game, his wrestling, so on and so forth. But dude, in terms of UFC prospects, I'm happy they signed him, mainly because he's 35 years old. He's kind of, if you're going to pull a trigger on somebody like this, you got to fucking do it now. So I'm excited to see that they signed him. And based off of, like, obviously I saw,
this guy has a touch of death, dude.
Yeah, I saw the first knockout on Twitter and I'm like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? So I went and looked up his highlight reel and it's just, oh, he does that to everybody. So it's like,
yeah.
I mean, dude, he's had 3 wins. His last 3 wins came inside of 17 seconds combined. That's not something that happens. So, yeah, I'm happy they signed him. It remains to be seen how good he'll actually be, but fuck, dude, you gotta sign guys like this sometimes. There's some guys who just become inevitable, and this guy looks inevitable. So, I'm happy they did it, man. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to see him fight first?
Literally,
do you want to push him fast or do you want to push him slow?
Slow, but I want to literally see him be active and literally fight anybody, because he can make fast turnarounds.
Okay, I'll ask you this question. Over or under 2 UFC fights until he faces Andrei Arlovski?
Over.
You take the over on that one?
Yeah.
I think he may face Arlovski in his second UFC fight. I could see some shit like that. I could
You know what you should have done? Like, ranked opponent. That would have been better.
Well, maybe, but, it is.
Andrei Arlovski's still ranked, though, right? So.
No, I don't think Arlovski's ranked anymore. I don't think they ranked him whenever he had that, 6-fight winning streak he had.
I guess you're right. I didn't even think about that.
Now they're having him fight Waldo Cortez Acosta in January.
Jesus. But no, look, that should have been the real question. You should have been like over or under 2 fights before he's rated to the UFC. I'd probably still say over.
Yeah, same. But they just use Arlovsky as the litmus test, guys. So that's just why I was saying him.
I mean, look, if Marcus Rogerio the Lima could be 15, I mean, this guy could definitely get to 15. So
yeah, no, I agree. This is going to be. I mean, unless you have any closing thoughts, this is going to be our last topic of the day. Because I think this one's interesting. And, something we've talked about many times on the show is the UFC's antitrust lawsuit. There is a lot of, there's some interesting stuff that's come out via discovery in this lawsuit. And I said some of it to Angel this morning. I don't understand how. I mean, I'll give MMA media who are they're controlled by the UFC, so that's why they're not covering it. But I'll give them tons of credit. I mean, many people don't even know that this shit's going on. And even if you know that it's going on, you probably didn't know about the emails and a lot of the stuff that's come out in discovery. The UFC team, specifically Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, Joe Silva, multiple emails were leaked in which they talk about, like, word for word, we need to send him a letter referring to John Jones, formally offering the Gustafsson fight and giving him a specific deadline to accept or reject. When he says no, we need to extend him, essentially adding in the championship clause and other clauses that essentially the UFC can try and extend your contract at any time, which is why the biggest names never can leave the UFC. That's why Ngannou is the first major name in 20 years, a champion, to leave the UFC, You could find Waleed Ismail. Who is Waleed Ismail? He's one of the highest profile managers for the UFC. He's a Brazilian. He's formerly represented Paulo Costa, Davison Figueiredo, a couple others. He also works for Jungle Fight. You can find emails in there where he's talking about guys, I believe, let me see the exact fighter he's referring to. I don't want to fuck it up. Just a smaller guy, Cesar Gonzalez. Said that he followed Jungle FC a year ago. Doesn't remember if he signed a contract or not. Then they got in contact with Waleed, and he said if he was with us, he's no longer with us. You guys can sign him. You can find Joe Silva talk about how he purposely lowballed Nate Diaz. Purposely lowballing him on purpose, knowing they would turn it down. They turned it down and put him in a prelim against a really tough guy for his last fight. So just a couple of emails that have come out. Angel, I know you probably don't have. I mean, what do you? I'm not sure how much you have to add. This is obviously I'm kind of been the guy taking more of the leading front on this stance. But seeing some of those emails and some of the stuff that's come out, what do you think, man?
Look, I think it's wildly interesting. I'm glad you showed me this information because look, I can't wait to go down the rabbit hole in my free time here soon. But no, I mean some of it is look, it's not shocking. It's like we knew some of this stuff was going on. But now seeing it and having like the literal evidence, is like even it's wild. It's crazy. It's so weird because I never thought I would ever have access to this kind of information, these kind of emails, and the fact that and certain things that I didn't even think about and like things that don't make the UFC seem very good or look like good guys at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of known that a lot of this, and look, there's still so much more that's going to come out. Like, we are literally just scratching the surface. This is just discovery. We're just starting this, right? At the same time, man, I don't understand how people defend it. It's one thing to hear stories and to kind of have an idea, because, like, there's nothing that UFC does that, like, surprises me, right? Really nothing. And in terms of some of the numbers that came out, like, Lorenzo Fertitta and, Dana White, the Fertitta brothers and Dana White made 4 times, what fighters did combined over the span of, their entire time owning the company. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like that, I'm not surprised at all about that. They're very money hungry. They, so on and so forth. They're not going to pay fighters shit. It's still interesting to see to see the way that they internally talked about some of these guys. And like in one of the emails, they talk about how they wanted to cut Little Nog. They were going to release Little Nog. They wanted to release him, but we can't let him go to Bellator, so we'll keep him. He's going
to fight Bader. It explicitly he said because he would fight Ryan Bader too, which is even wilder that they would even like add something like that in there.
Exactly. So It's very interesting. I would encourage people to read it. Because at a certain point, like, I understand that there's only so much of it that is surprising, but at the same time, like, people need to know, man. I just wish people know, and I wish people cared too, because, look, man, people need to understand how much, like, here's the thing. I don't think I would care as much if I had not been watching the UFC product be getting worse and worse and worse year after year. Like, that's not to say that fight cards aren't incredible. Like, we have incredible fight cards, right? Like, UFC Austin. Yeah, of course, UFC Austin last week. But then, like, is there anybody that denies, like, the UFC product over the last 5 years has gotten over, like, standardly just overall worse? It just feels like it's been watered down. They've cut a bunch of fighters who are actually interesting. They're just bringing in guys from the contender series who it doesn't really matter if they're good or not because they're only going to last 4 fights anyway. You know, it doesn't really matter. They're just bringing them in, churning them out, bringing them in, churning them out. It doesn't fucking matter, you know? So I think, admittedly, I probably have my own biases in the same point. But still, to look at these guys and to see some of the emails, and see some of the way they speak about these fighters, and to kind of just have confirmation that, like, yeah, they know what they're doing, you know? I mean, we already knew that they knew what they were doing, but still, just the way that they detested their own talent is just, it's just odd to me. It's just odd to me. But, yeah, I mean, it's another thing coming out, and Dana White on Saturday night was asked about the PFL and Bellator merging, and I don't have the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of one shitty company, buying another shitty company, which I found interesting, considering that you're in a lawsuit about being a monopoly, that you say that. But, you know, look, I mean, I don't have anything else to add, man. But, yeah, any closing thoughts on this? Anything else we can talk about, man?
No, I mean, like, every time we bring any of this up, Josh, I'm always so interested because it's getting so much more juicier and better and more drama, honestly. I can't help it, dude. It's like a soap opera in front of my eyes, I'll be honest.
It really is, dude. And the craziest thing is that people, I say people, just like...
Are there really people, though?
Yeah. Huh?
Can you really call them people, though? Come on.
No, you're right. I mean, just MMA media not talking about... It's the biggest story in MMA right now. I mean, we are 3 months away from the sport potentially being turned on its head, depending on how that fucking lawsuit goes. And I don't even think most people know that it's happening. So it's like... Damn, dude.
Why do you think some of the big guys aren't covering this? I'm talking about, like, guys like Ariel Helwani, the Luke Thomases of the world. Like, they'll mention it, but it's not to the extent that I would hope to. Especially those guys, because I feel like those guys genuinely care about the sport. Like, they're genuinely passionate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably like a mix of things. I think, one, it's just not very profitable or interesting. I could tell you... And I could tell people from my work doing, doing media work and getting to see some of the numbers on some of the stuff I've written about. Nobody gives a fuck about this. I don't know why. To me, it's incredibly interesting that the sport might be turned upside down in a couple of months, and we're seeing these internal emails from the UFC, and we're learning all this stuff. But a lot of people just care about fighting. And so it's very hard to make people care about non-fighting. So, yeah, man, very, very interesting. I don't know where we'll go from here, and I don't know why more people don't talk about it. I honestly have no idea. I know why some don't, because they're bought and paid for. You know, I'm very well aware of that in this current media ecosystem that we have because like the UFC already detests media so bad. That's why they're bringing in people like. Nina, I can't think of her fucking name, but they're bringing her in. Yeah, they're bringing her in exclusively to do interviews, and she's like, oh, you know, MMA media just sucks. You know, it's like, no, bitch, you're not media. You just work for the UFC. That's not what media is. Like, they want their own internal media, so that's why Dana doesn't give many interviews anymore. That's why they have all these fighters getting interviewed by the same 3 to 4 people. And they don't care because they're being paid. In terms of guys like Helwani and Luke Thomas and them, it's just not profitable. So it's kind of a bad situation in where,
where they just rather talk about the fights and stuff like that and big stuff. You know? And if anything does happen or go down with the UFC, obviously they'll bring it up. But when it's finally, major and set and done.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's unfortunate that it does not get more coverage. It should. But look, man, I mean, there's only so long they can avoid it. Because more than likely, I really don't see a way in which the fighters settle, and I also don't think there's a way in which the UFC settles. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to more than likely go to trial, and at which point I don't know how they wouldn't talk about it. Especially considering the UFC traditionally gets hotter throughout the year. I mean, what's going down in March? Not UFC 300s the following month, I believe. I don't know. It's just interesting. It just interests me. But look, man. Any closing thoughts? Anything else we can talk about before we go and move on?
No, nothing specifically, man. I'm happy but sad at the same time. We get to come back next week and talk about the last card of the year, the last pay-per-view of 2023. We finally get to see Leon Edwards return against Colby Covington, though, so that's kind of, I'm not gonna get into it, but regardless, I'll be here and I'll talk about it, and I can't wait to recap this week, man, too, whenever we get to next week.
Of course. And if you guys enjoyed the show, feel free to go ahead and follow us. I'm at Josh Evanoff on Twitter. He's at Angelo Ortega _01. At Courtside Sound for all things relating to the show. Looking to get 1,300 subscribers, so help us get there, fellas. We're pretty close. Yeah, I mean that's all I got, man. That's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace and butt grease. Mouse click.